Welcome back to the Piston Jack YouTube channel. On today's episode, we'll be reacting to the annual NBA Teams GM survey by NBA.com, where our Pistons featured frequently. We'll go over those results and we'll also touch on the latest signing to the Pistons roster. We'll get to that in just a moment. Okay, earlier today, I woke up to some news on Twitter. Keith Smith from Spot Track, salary cap guru, really good follow on Twitter. He's been on point with a lot of these signings, and he tweeted out today, as you can see on the right, that the Detroit Pistons have signed Jaden Akins to an Exhibit 10 contract, a league source told Spot Track. As you can see, Jaden Akins is from Michigan State. He has spent the past 4 seasons playing in the Big Ten for MSU, and I'm sure that a few of you watching this will be MSU fans, and I'm sure you're very familiar with his game. I admittedly do not watch a lot of college basketball. Some of that is because it's just not as accessible here in Australia. They have games on, but to be honest, until March Madness, I don't pay a lot of attention. But I've done a little bit of research on Jaden's game and just looking at some of the numbers. So he's a 6'4" guard, and his most productive season was this one just gone. In terms of pure production, he averaged just under 13 points a game, 3.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists. All of those, well, the points were a career high, and he did so on 40% from the field and 29% from three. And this is a guy that doesn't get to the line a whole lot, got to the line about 2.5 times a game and shot 77%. So the thing that stood out for me is when you look at the three-point percentage, interestingly, this is a guy that's actually shot the three-point, had a really nice three-point shot and kind of struggled this past season, his 4th year as a senior. Like I said, shot 29% on 5.5 attempts per game. Prior to that, he shot 36% on 5 attempts, and then as a sophomore, he shot 42% on 4 attempts. So these were in similar roles in terms of minutes. Maybe just a down shooting year, because overall about 35% from the college 3-point line. And look, this is a guy that has scored the ball relatively well. You'd like to see higher efficiency than 39-40%, which is pretty much his field goal for most of the time. But it looks like at least half of his shots for his career have come from the 3-point line. So that's going to dictate overall how things look for him and his field goal percentage. So Exhibit 10 deal, for those that don't know, that's just a training camp deal, I believe. He will just be on the Pistons roster for the remainder of training camp. And I would assume normally what happens is these players are converted to Motor City Cruise, or to the G League team for the Motor City Cruise for the upcoming season. So he will join the likes of Dawson Garcia, Bryce Williams, who's currently playing on the Pistons roster in the preseason. Amongst also, they'll play alongside the two-way guys, Dennis Jenkins, Tolu Smith, and Colby Jones when he's back healthy and ready to play. So I'm not sure if we'll see any more of these deals signed, but like I said, something to look forward to for the Motor City Cruise, especially with that MSU tie there. That's always cool to see someone from within the state who's played college ball playing for the Pistons in some sort. So drop below any thoughts you have on Jaden Akins. I'm sure there's parts of his games I've missed, but I would love to hear any thoughts on him and what we can expect from him on the Cruise, and in the unlikely event he was to make the Pistons roster. So next, where we're going to go to is the GM survey for the 2025-2026 season. This is an article that is put together by John Schumann over at NBA.com. Every year for as long as I can remember, at least the past 10 years. And he basically sends 47 questions to all GMs or front officers in the NBA, and they answer all 47 questions, and these are where the results come from. So it's important to note as well that teams can't vote for themselves or their players. So that is something to keep in mind here when we go through some of these. So I've just got through a sample of some of the interesting ones that obviously involve the Pistons. I think the first one here that is a team-oriented one is that the GMs, when we look at the Eastern Conference standings here, as you can see on screen, Most GMs have the Pistons slated to finish fifth in the Eastern Conference. I believe 10% have them to finish third. As you can see here, 23% have them slated to finish fourth. But overall, the Pistons finished or level out to fifth in the East, tied with the Bucks, where the Bucks, some people had them finishing second, as you can see here. So that's kind of brought their scale up because the Pistons had more fourth place votes. But they have the Pistons sitting at fifth, which, to be honest, this is pretty much very similar to my standings, at least the top 5 or 6, but I have the Pistons above the Hawks. I'm just not as sold on the Hawks like everyone is. I think they're going to be really good this year. They're definitely not going to be a playing team, but I think people aren't. When I talk about the Pistons, obviously I'm biased, but I don't think people are factoring in enough the Pistons and the continuity they have for the first time in a long, long time, where they have the same coach, same GM, bringing back the same core of players who, Cade is already looking like he's taking another step forward or leap potentially this season. Plus, there's a player we're going to talk about a fair bit here who is expected to really pop this season, but there's a young core there that I think at least one or two of them are going to take a leap this year, and that's combined with that continuity why I believe the Pistons are going to be in the top 4 of the East, but I can't get too mad with them being fifth. I understand that. So the next one I want to quickly hit, because I thought people would want to know the answer to these 2 questions. No Piston featured in these. As you can see here, who will win their 25-26 MVP? Nikola Jokic is the runaway winner there at 67% of the votes. But obviously no votes for Cade in there. Not surprised. I thought there might have been just a sneaky random vote for him, but no love for Cade in the MVP. And then if you were to start a franchise today and could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be? The 3 players here, as you can see, are Wemby, overwhelming favorite at 83%. SGA and Jokic round out the top 3. So nothing too surprising there, but just wanted to hit those 2 in case you were wondering if Cade made the conversation. Maybe he will next year. Maybe with another All-NBA season under his belt, he will start to get a bit more respect in these. But like I said, I'm not too mad he's not in them. Now, this is our first true feature for a Pistons player when we look at who is most likely to have a breakout season in the 25-26 season. Now, Asar Thompson comes in tied for second with 10%. As you can see, his brother Amen is at 30%. So this isn't too much of a surprise. I think Asar is the player that features the most in these, and he was the guy I was alluding to earlier. A lot of buzz for Asar, and we know as Pistons fans how special Asar can be and some of the things we've seen him do, but it's always cool to see. This is the GMs, remember. This isn't media voting. This is GMs, NBA GMs, who themselves and their teams have likely scouted all these players that are featured here. So this is coming from people who understand the game and understand how the NBA game is played today, and they see Asar as the second likely player to break out this season. So no surprises there. When you look at betting odds, Asar is in the top 5 for most improved player. So him and his brother, big things coming for them this season. And I think the thing with Asar is, I've spoken about it a lot here, is that first NBA offseason under his belt, and he's looking solid so far in preseason with a new role, and I think he's just going to get better and better as the year goes on. So some love for Asar there. More love for Asar when we look at who is the best perimeter defender in the NBA. Asar, 2% of the votes, which is the 6th most. Can't really complain with Dyson Daniels, Caruso, Amen, Lou Dort. Drew Holiday, maybe. I guess based off career, I can see how you have him ahead of Asar, but I do think some of this is because Asar just hasn't had the body of work because of the blood clots that affected both his first and second season. But what we saw him doing to Jalen Brunson in the playoffs, I think he'll be much higher on this list. I suspect he will be right up there with Dyson Daniels and Caruso. So some love for him though, considering the little amount of games he's played compared to the rest of these guys. That's pretty impressive to have Asar there. Some love here for JB Bickerstaff. Which coach is the best manager motivator of people? Eric Spoelstra, he was kind of at the top of all these coaching voting polls, but our man JB Bickerstaff got at least 1 vote, as you can see along the bottom there in the also receiving votes category. Like I've been saying, I think JB, he will be another guy that's much higher on this list next season. I think last year was an incredible turnaround, and I think it's just a matter of proving that, like, we don't think it was a fluke, but if this team can come back, win more than, 44, 45 games, I think a lot of Pistons fans have them around that 48 win mark. Pistons get there, then not only will the players get more respect, but people like JB Bickerstaff and his amazing coaching staff will have more respect in these voting polls. Which head coach has the best defensive schemes? No surprises here. Mark Daigneault at the top with OKC and their ridiculous defense. But our man, once again, JB, climbs in, getting some love with some votes. Which team is the most fun to watch? I enjoyed this one. The Pistons came in here with like an honorable mention, also receiving some votes. Obviously, Nuggets and OKC at the top, but I continue just to say it. I think, once again, our Pistons, with another successful winning season, will be sitting much higher here. There's so much fun, athleticism, length, versatility on this roster that there's kind of something for everyone. If you like, guys that put up big stats, pass, lobs, then Cade's your guy. If you love just pure raw athleticism, tenacity, just freakish athleticism, I should say, you've got Asar. If you like that grit, grind, dog mentality, you've got Stu, you've got Ron Holland, you've got B-Will Paul when he's in the game. There's truly something for everyone on this Pistons team, I believe. Pure shooting, you got Duncan Robinson. So I think if you're someone who just likes to watch basketball, the Pistons a team that will be much higher on this list as the season goes on. And then we'll wrap it up here. Which team has the most promising young core? I was a little bit surprised by this, I can't lie. OKC at the top, probably once again, no surprise, 50%. San Antonio, 27%. Pistons, 10%. And Rockets, 10%. So I don't have any issues with this. I was just surprised for the Pistons to get this kind of love. Obviously, we know how special Cade is. I assume Asar's factoring in here. Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey, Ron Holland probably are the main contributors here. But the young core it's going to be special. I feel like there's so much untapped potential still. And like I said, of those 5 players I mentioned, Cade's already broken out, but I think he's looking like he could be going to another level this season, which I wasn't sure I expected for him after the huge jump he took last year. But that's certainly amazing. But I truly think one of Asar, Ivy, or Jalen Duren, at least one, is going to really pop this year and be knocking on the door of, like, maybe not an all-star, but just in that conversation. If the Pistons stay healthy enough and win the amount of games I think they will, Cade will be an all-star, but I truly think one of those 3 players is going to pop, and the Pistons, might only get one all-star with Cade, but they'll be very close to having a second. And if there's an injury or two, maybe one of those 3 players makes it. I just think one of them's taking that leap. I do. I think that one of them's primed for it. All 3 of them have battled kind of injuries, different coaching staffs, and just like haven't had the proper off-season and runway or regular season with weird rosters around them to kind of pop. But I think one of them this year they're primed for one of them to break out. So I think having the Pistons 3rd is fair. Rockets tied with them is definitely fair. Although I think Cade is better than any of the Rockets' young players by a fair bit. No disrespect to Amen and Şengün, who are probably better than the Pistons' 2nd and 3rd players, but I just think Cade's on another level. But you can see how that evens out. And then the Magic, a little bit surprised. I guess it's voted. I guess that's not too surprising. But yeah, so the Spurs, I would say, is heavily weighted with Wemby. Obviously, they've just got Dylan Harper and they have Steph Castle, Vassell, some other guys. But I would say Wemby makes up a large portion of the reason they got those votes. But that's going to do it for today's show, guys. We'll have videos for you Monday to Friday on the channel. Some people reached out and asked about the post-game shows. I'm just changing how I do things with the live streams, but I can promise you there will be a weekly live stream for fans to come up and join, so stay tuned for that. That will be more news on that definitely in the next week or 2, and that will be up and running for the regular season. But thank you so much for watching. As always, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. But until next time, as always, go Pistons.